I'm really excited today to have Doug Cunnington from nichesiteproject.com on the channel. Doug, welcome. Do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I currently basically work for myself. So I have a blog and a podcast and a YouTube channel, and I talk about marketing. I didn't start here though. I had a corporate job. I was a management consultant. It was a pretty good job. And I started dabbling with some affiliate marketing back in 2013. And eventually I got laid off 2015. And around that time, funny enough, I moved to Montana. I actually lived in Bozeman with my wife and dog for about 4 years. We kind of went through, I wouldn't say a midlife crisis, but we were like shifting. We realized that we have options. So we moved to Bozeman from Georgia, which is fantastic. And then got laid off in 2015, took the side hustle into my full-time gig. And it's been a few years, so I've been successful at that. It's been really fun. I enjoy the sort of technical aspect and the marketing aspect and a lot of the new things that I was able to learn they were all very much outside my old corporate job. So I enjoy kind of making my own decisions and working on projects that I want to work on versus being in the corporate org chart and just having to deal with, whatever is pushed your way.
Yeah, that sounds good. I was excited to have you on because I think you're a really good person to talk to about entrepreneurship, financial independence. And then I was hoping to talk a little bit today about emergency funds too, if we have time. Pretty good intro. I was thinking like Doug Cunnington, like smoker of briskets, nicher of websites, brewer of beers. That's how I probably would have done it, but that was great. So thank you for coming on and welcome to the channel. Speaking of, I guess this is a good time to plug your beer recommendation to me, Plum Street Porter from Bozeman Brewing Company. And it's actually pretty good. I'm not much of a dark beer drinker, but I kind of like it. What have you got?
I have Colette from Great Divide Brewing out of Denver. And yeah, I love the Bozeman Brewing Company out there. You could tag them too whenever you share this on social. But yeah, I was friends with some of the brewers there, and I actually taught a couple of beer judging classes, and they were kind enough to let me use their facilities, and many of the brewers and the owners joined us for a lot of those tastings. So yeah, good crew over at Bozeman Brewing.
Fun. You'd be proud of me. I actually searched on Amazon before this to see if I could come up with an affiliate link for Plum Street Porter, but I couldn't find it. So I don't think that they sell alcohol on Amazon.
They don't.
But yeah, I'll definitely tag them. That's a good idea. It's nice to support Montana businesses, so it's good. So you had mentioned that you actually are pretty close to FI, or basically FI by some definitions. So do you want to share, what are your definitions of FI?
I do like sort of the standard 4% rule that is out there, where you look at your annual expenses, multiply by 25, which works out to 4%. And then that's going to get you pretty darn close. I think we may be a little more conservative in that, we're probably going to look at multiplying by 30 or 33, something like that. And I don't know the math the reverse way. I think that works out to 3%, something like that. But all the information out there seems pretty solid on that. I feel, pretty comfortable with, the 3 to 4% rule. My wife, and we can dig into this, my wife's more conservative and less tolerant of risk. So, that's why we're aiming at 3%. Some of the others that I've seen out there, which I think you told me about a couple of them, because I'm honestly a bit ignorant about some of the FI nuances out there, but I do like the sort of the coast FI idea where, we do look at our expenses currently. We look at the number of years that we may want to continue working pretty hard. And I think we're good. If we if we just like let things ride, we'll be okay. Of course, I'm doing my marketing and some of my online ventures here, which are a lot of fun. I definitely enjoy it. And my wife still has a full-time job. So we technically could coast, and we're adding fuel to the fire, and it's working out well. The other thing we were looking at is like the fat FI, which I guess we're sort of recently introduced. And I think one of the first people that told me about it, they were like, hey, our expenses are, say, 50,000 a year, but instead we're going to make sure we can spend 100K when we're retired. Even though a lot of times like your expenses may go down a little bit, we don't want to be encumbered at all. We want to sort of just have full flexibility to spend money stupidly at some point. So those are sort of the main areas that I consider. But when it comes down to it, I believe that we'll continue making money in some fashion. I enjoy what I'm doing. I don't work. I got to be careful. I don't work too hard, but I have a lot of flexibility. So if I do want to take some time off, I can. And that's one of the, more important things to me, but I could still make pretty good money working on projects that I want to, while being able to have flexibility.
I mean, you wouldn't dare work after becoming financially independent, right?
That's one of those big complaints where, and I think, I started to drop the FIRE portion, the retire early, because, so many people seem to have like a adverse issue with it. But yeah, you can't argue with like just saving and like spending in a smart way. They're like only spending on things that make you happy.
Yeah. So do you factor in Social Security when you're figuring out how much you want to have for retirement and how much you need to save?
In some of the simulations that I've looked at, I did put that in as a line item, as well as like paying off your home, which you've already done, but we haven't. So there's some things that sort of pick up or drop off. Plus we have some retirement investments like the 401k and an IRA that we started, way back. And those will obviously keep growing over the next, 20 years. So those will be there if we ever actually need to touch them, which I guess at some point you have to start taking money out. They make you do it. So yes, I have considered it, but in a lot of ways, I mean, you probably can tell we're aiming for the much more conservative angle. So it would be a trivial amount, really.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same place. Like we both enjoy working and plan to continue working. So it's almost like, we're going to be more than covered, which is a really fortunate place to be in. And so, yeah, it's kind of hard to like spend the time to calculate everything when you're like, yeah, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, but I mean, well, and like I mentioned, my wife is more risk averse. So even when it looks like, for me, we would be more than covered, it's like, I'm not so sure. Like, what if some worst case scenario happens? And that's really, I mean, honestly, it's tough to deal with, because I'm a lot more like fly by the seat of my pants. Like, it's going to work out fine versus like,
oh, sorry.
Oh yeah. Versus like covering, 99.99999 and all the risk that is out there. Cause you can't be 100% sure. So
I like to say you're only as FI as the least FI spouse.
Yeah.
Whoever is whoever wants more money is, that's kind of where you have to shoot for, depending. Because I have kind of the same setup with my husband, where he grew up on a farm. And so he's used to just hearing big numbers. And so, even like 1.6 million, it doesn't sound or feel like a lot of money to him, which seems strange to me. I'm just like, whoa, that's so much
a lot of money.
It's so much money. But he's like, yeah, that's like 1.5 tractors. So, it's kind of a strange dichotomy there of like, how much does it take for each person to feel comfortable with slowing down working or stopping working to take a break even.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, that is some of the flexibility that you get also where, layoffs happen all the time. I mean, I was laid off, and actually my wife was laid off after we moved to Montana too, but you have flexibility if you have a little bit of a cushion out there.
Mm. Do you think that being laid off affected like how much money you'd like to have to retire on? Like, do you think that pushed you more towards that pie?
I don't think so. I was okay at the job, and then I knew that I could take my side hustle full time if I put in the time and focused. So yeah, I don't think it was really much of an impact, but I think really it makes a good narrative, honestly, for the business that I do now, because it's so relatable to have been laid off.
Yeah, especially nowadays. Well, I think a lot of people are dealing with that. But so I guess one of my questions for you too was, why do you like entrepreneurship? We talked on your interview, which I will link below, the interview we did on your channel. But why did you want to become an entrepreneur? Why do you think entrepreneurship is a good choice?
Well, I didn't want to. So that's a good sideways angle to get in there. I mean, I have an engineering degree. I had my corporate job and really just kind of was trying to go up the corporate ladder, and accidentally found affiliate marketing and making money online through the Smart Passive Income podcast, and then got more and more interested in it. There were a lot of things to learn. I didn't have much marketing or entrepreneurship interest. I didn't take any courses in it. So as I was learning more stuff, which I enjoy, I was having fun, and you could make money at it, which is, more than some other hobbies. So as time went on, I realized that I was getting better at it. And there was some mindset shift that occurred where I was like, well, yeah, I don't want to work for some company where I'm just a cog in the machine and I don't make any decisions. I'm working on projects that I don't care about for big companies that are laying people off just in general. So it's a good decision, because for me now, my mindset is that, hey, I love to choose the projects that I want to work on. If something is a good idea and I want to test it, I don't have to get permission. I could just do that. By the way, side note, I did try that at the corporate job because I had some autonomy. I had a team of people working for me. So I started doing things that I thought were a good idea to test. Some were good, some were bad, but they don't like that when you start doing things without asking permission. I did ask permission in the past, and they would say, no, you know what, we've been doing this for a little while. We're just going to keep doing things the same way. So for me personally, I enjoy the fact that it's kind of unlimited earnings. So if you're at a job, a lot of times there's salary caps for positions. And I went through most of my career getting, I would say like 1 to 5% raises each year, like barely enough for inflation. On the rare occasion that I got promoted, it was still maybe, I think the biggest raise I ever got was like 12%, something like that. And bonuses, they would always promise like, oh, you could get a bonus up to this percentage, but there's some mystery X factor. So bonuses always suck too. So basically you're like working super hard and trying to follow all the coaching that you're getting. And then your reward is like a couple $1,000. And if you're an entrepreneur, depending on what you're working on, like you can grow, and the limit is like whatever you can do, whatever you think is possible. So I enjoy it for that portion. And again, just kind of having autonomy to make your own decisions, huge. So if I want to take a day off or have a beer, it is the middle of the day while we're recording this, and that's what we can do.
um, yeah, I mean, so I kind of wanted, this is a little bit off topic, but my husband and I were just reading this subreddit about different types of investments. And this guy was making the argument that entrepreneurship is a good investment, but bad investment advice. But he quoted that statistic that says like 80% of businesses fail the first year or something like that. And I was just thinking how it's not really a fair comparison. Whenever we look at investments for the stock market, for example, we look at like 30-year returns. Whereas, yeah, you might have had business failure, but a lot of entrepreneurs, it sounds like, are like kind of serial entrepreneurs. They go from thing to thing until they find something that works. So to just look at 1 year and say, oh, well, it's a failure, you're going to fail, it felt a little unfair to me. So I was wondering, is this the one business that you've ever had? Have you ever done any other businesses? And what do you think about comparing entrepreneurship as an investment?
I wouldn't compare it as an investment. I think you need to have some interest in like growing a business, starting things and failing and sort of adapting along the way. I think flexibility is really huge. And you're right, looking at 1 year is completely not fair. You would have to look at someone who, created a few businesses and tried to get better along the way. Continuous improvement is really important. For my first business, I actually didn't really put this together until after I started my own company here now, is when I was like 12, I cut grass, and I cut grass until I was like maybe midway through college or so. And I just would do that, and I made a lot of money doing that. And I didn't hire anyone, but I made a lot more per hour than I like would have any other job, especially as like a 12-year-old, right? Like you can't even get a job in Georgia when you're that age. So I was able to, do the marketing and like manage the customer relationships and like get paid and all that stuff. So I didn't realize it, but I did have a business back then, completely forgot about it, did this whole corporate thing. And then when I did get laid off, I had a few business areas that I could try out. They all sort of fit with the skills that I had and things that I wanted to do. And I tried to do like 5 things at once. Eventually I realized a service-based business, while it's great to bring in money quickly, I hated it. I didn't want to deal with clients, and the work was a little tedious. If I thought about being successful as a service provider, it meant that I would have a team of people working for me, which is exactly what I did in my corporate job, which I didn't want to do. So I want to have a lean team. I don't want to have a big org chart or anything like that. So as I tried some business models that didn't work out, I was like, all right, we'll get rid of that one. I don't like to do that one. This one's working out well, and maybe I could branch out in this area. So I actually did start a few things all at once in parallel, which is a bad idea. Don't do that. You should focus on one thing. But once I whittled it down within, I guess within a year, I was doing much better. And I could tell you the actual figures. So the first year out, I was actually profitable. I made like 35,000 that first year. So profitable, great, right? And then by the next year was like over 6 figures. So like pretty quick. I mean, just to be profitable the first year is fantastic. And then to grow quickly after that was even better. So
Yeah, so to kind of recap your points there, so a 12-year-old can beat the statistic on
yeah.
80% of businesses fail. I worry that it scares people away that might otherwise be really good entrepreneurs. Certainly not everyone's cut out for it. I understand that, but yeah, like you said, you tried out a few things, which is a good approach, right? And so therefore you had some things that you quit essentially. I know it's really hard to get statistics on entrepreneurship, like how many of those 80% of businesses that failed, or how many of those were quitting, or people weren't putting in the effort, of the businesses that like actually try operate all year, so I don't know how many of those are MLMs, and
Right.
I don't know, I'm interested to kind of learn more about that statistic and see if it really shakes out. But
And I think that, I mean, if people want to do a thing and they're persistent enough, I feel like most of the time they're going to work it out. Now, sure, yeah, some people, maybe they don't have the resources or the skills, but I mean, you can usually figure some stuff out, especially the skills area. I mean, you can learn like almost anything on YouTube. I didn't know anything about marketing or any of the stuff that I do right now. I didn't know any of it.
it's encouraging to hear that you can learn what you need to know. A lot of people feel like they have to know things or else will not be successful. So that's cool.
The downside, I did have a full head of hair when I started this thing, but
Yeah, you gotta make sure that you're listing all of the pros and cons, right?
yeah, but actually this is a great money saving technique. I mean, I cut my own hair. I have for years. So
Yes, good. I have too. I was cutting my own hair before it was cool. So, and I even have gotten my husband to, he shaves his own head now too. He just has like a short little buzz cut. And so I'm just like, yeah, it's a great way to save money. You don't have to drive in to go anywhere. I'm a big fan of the self haircut. So
more attractive too, right?
yeah, I mean, if you, yeah. And like I wear my hair in a ponytail all the time. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. No one's going to see the back of it. Where can people find you online?
So here on YouTube, of course, you're watching a video right now. So I have a YouTube channel and I talk mostly about affiliate marketing and SEO, some entrepreneurship and productivity. So you can check that out. There's a ton of videos. You can also go to my blog, nichesiteproject.com, where you can sign up for the email list. I'll send you all the templates that I use to run my business for affiliate marketing. There's actually like probably dozens of resources and tons of content over there on Niche Site Project. So if you just sign up there, click the green button, enter your name and email address, you'll get all those right away. And I'll send you other emails and eventually try and sell you something. I'm an entrepreneur after all. But you can unsubscribe after you get the resources. And if you like podcasts, I have a podcast called The Doug Show. So it's at doug.show. And I'm sure, Roxanne, you'll link up for all that stuff, right?
I will. I certainly will. And thank you so much for being on the interview today. Thank you for the beer recommendation. And yeah, I'll go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.